let's hit it.
And welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
All right, here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome back to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I'm thrilled that you are joining us today. We're going to be talking about Alzheimer's research and how the ideas and theories on prevention, reduction, and cure are starting to change with our guest today. So before I introduce them, I always like to do a few shout-outs, and I always appreciate so much the Mark Arneson Band, who does our opening music called Clarion Call, which you can download on any of your favorite music platforms. And for those of you that are new to our show, you might be wondering, what the heck are they all about, and how did you get started? Well, my own mom lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost and frustrated like so many other family members. So Alzheimer's Speaks is an overall, advocacy and media outlet. We have lots of different platforms, the radio show being one of them. And on the show itself, I say we're not about sound bites. We want sound information. So we talk with voices big and small all over the world, from those that are diagnosed to family members to advocates to business professionals and researchers. Now, today we are live, so if you'd like to call in, if you have any questions or comments, you can do that at 323-870-4602. That's 323-870-4602. Now, if you have not checked out our updated website, please go to alzheimersspeaks.com. I am so proud of it. It's so much easier to find resources. In fact, we have one page just dedicated to all of our resources, from the radio show to dementia chats, where you hear from people living with dementia, to quick tips, things that I have learned about building dementia-friendly communities, memory cafes, poetry. You can learn more about Dementia Map there, which is a joint venture I did with Dave Wiedrich, who has the Memory Cafe directory. We have 150 different categories you can search. There's a calendar of events, most of which are free, as well as a glossary of terms and a blog. You will also find on that resource page about dementia in the arts, some free tools, and so much more. So please go to alzheimersspeaks.com and check that out. On the events page, I do have a section for public events, and I do have a couple coming up that are public. One is Tuesday, September 20th, and that'll be at 6:30 to 7:30 Eastern Time. That is going to be a presentation sponsored by Artis Senior Living called The Realities of Dementia, family-friendly tips and tools. And then if you're in Minnesota, here in Minnetonka on October 31st, we're going to be doing the screening of the film A Timeless Love with their dementia-friendly community. And you can find information on both of those regarding our public events section. Before I introduce our guests, we are going to hear from the Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner, and then we will be right back. Sure we will, as soon as I find my little clip, which just kind of disappeared. Here we go.
I love the footbar walker, and let me tell you why. It is the option for my toolbox that I've been waiting for. Let's be honest. There are some clients who, despite our best rehab efforts, just aren't able to return to performing a sit-to-stand transfer on their own. Now I can offer my caregivers an easier, safer option that doesn't involve hoisting their loved one up from a sitting position. I don't recommend this walker for all of my clients, but I do recommend this walker for those caregivers looking for an easier, safer option with transfers. I would also encourage other therapists to add this walker to their toolbox. It's kind of like having my own mobile parallel bars for the client to pull up on. Whether it's a family caregiver at home helping a loved one with Parkinson's or dementia, CNAs in a long-term care facility assisting their patients, or therapists adapting to client and caregiver-specific needs, we now have a very safe and effective option to offer in the Footbar Walker. Check this product out at thefootbarwalker.com. That's it for today from Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner. Have a great day, and don't forget, if you can't do it, adapt it.
I love both companies. They just do an amazing job. So please check them both out. We are going to talk right now with the developer of the numeric language of music that is really showing some fabulous results in reducing cognitive decline in terms of symptoms. And we also have a guest who is going to talk about some of the results that she's seen. So let me introduce you first to Patty Carlson. Patty is a professional film score composer. She's a concert pianist. And what brings her here is dementia. And you wouldn't think those things mix, but she is also the author and U.S. patent holder of the numeric language of music. Patty is also the research analyst and the music and the brain director of the Alzheimer's research project. So, Patty, I am just thrilled to have you back on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Well, good. I am going to next introduce you to Jerry Tim. Jerry joined Visiting Angels back in 2002, where she worked 10 years with them, assisting the owner in the startup of that company. And they achieved the largest revenue-producing agency in that leading national home care franchise. Jerry has also been certified as a validation practitioner, and more recently, she has worked with Morning Glory Home Care for 9 years, where once again she was assisting the owner in establishing a non-franchise home care agency. So, Jerry, I'm thrilled that you can be with us today as well. I hope you're having a good day, and again, I'm thrilled you're with us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much, Lori.
Well, good. Well, I always start out by asking everybody kind of the same question. And so, Patty, I'm going to throw this one to you first, and that is for audiences that haven't heard you on the show before, can you just tell us if you have been personally touched in your own family or circle of friends by any form of dementia?
Actually, no, Lori. My relationship with dementia was part of my research, where the things that I was seeing developed with the use of the numeric language of music kind of suggested that it could really help somebody with dementia.
Okay, wonderful. Now, Jerry, I understand your father's apparent cognitive decline was kind of the reason that you began searching for new information about Alzheimer's and dementia. Can you give us a little bit of background about your dad and why you became concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. So I began noticing some cognitive changes through the pandemic, as so many of us, did. As our parents, grandparents, became more isolated. The outside world, they didn't have access, to the normal people, loved ones, and activities that, they've all come to rely on to help support them. And my father was no different than many out there, where his, isolation really led to, I think, ultimately a retreat inward, in every sense of those words, where it began affecting certainly his cognition, his processing of information, his physical condition really began to decline. His enthusiasm that he's always had for life and for his family, began to also retreat. and his self-esteem, his connection to who he is in this world began to fade. And obviously, that was very disconcerting. My father is a man who is, he feels strongly about connecting deeply with others authentically. And to lose that really was an avalanche of loss.
I can imagine. The stories I've heard during COVID they've been so widespread throughout the whole world in terms of what people were seeing in terms of decline. How did you hear about Patty's Alzheimer's research project program? And when did you guys begin that?
Yeah, I would call it divine intervention because I wasn't specifically seeking her program out. I was unaware of her program. I simply saw a thumbnail on my YouTube screen, and I have been researching just alternative therapies for cognitive improvement, and clicked on the thumbnail because it piqued my interest, and I saw the interview that the two of you did introducing Patty's program, and it was a light bulb moment, and I felt very strongly, intuitively, that I needed to reach out and at least have a discussion.
Oh, interesting. Patty, I'm going to have you kind of pop in right now and tell people, about, what is the Alzheimer's research, project and what is the numeric language of music. Let's kind of set that up for people, and then I'll go back to Jerry again.
Okay. As a film score composer, actually I'm self-taught. I'm predominantly self-taught. I started at 21, and I was composing and producing music for films for Marty Stauffer's Wild America on PBS by the time I was 30. And I looked at music differently. I understood music as an advanced language because when I composed music, it was to increase the emotional response of the audience to the film, and I was very, very good at that. So I began teaching my understanding, which was a very fundamental order of musical tones that worked on the numbers 1 through 7. And that was the core foundation of the entire language of music. And when I started teaching that, I started observing very phenomenal changes in students, such as their grades were going from failing to 98 and 100% within like a couple of weeks in math and in reading. And we saw a lot of other things that I came to the conclusion that this is, we're talking about years of research on this, that the information that I was introducing was actually beginning the changes, the cognitive acceleration from the start. Just as soon as I introduced this information, these are mathematical sequences of musical tones, and I reached out to a lot of neuroscientists trying to explain about the numeric language of music, and I couldn't get anywhere. So I finally went to the Assisted Living Center and gave a brief lecture and asked if I could have an opportunity to test my theory that this might be able to help Alzheimer's dementia and Parkinson's disease, and I was able to teach 3 different people test the program, and the first person was a woman named Ruth. She had a 3-minute retention capacity. She was in a wheelchair. She could not, play the piano herself. And for the first time, I went in and I'd take her left hand and I'd press each one of her fingers down on the appropriate keys, and then moved her hand to the next spot and did it again. Walked around to the right-hand side, did the same program. And that was the first session. I taught her for 1 hour, twice a week. The second session, in the middle of it, I said, Ruth, I'm sorry. I said, I just wait a second, have to get a chair because I'm hurting my back. The following week, now we're talking less than 2 weeks, the following week, I started the session, and Ruth looked at me and she said to me, "Patty, do you need to go get a chair so you don't hurt your back?" And that was the beginning. She was able to, shortly thereafter, she was able to feed herself. Her improvement in mobility was accelerating. And then about the third week, the people in the assisted living center were telling her daughter, "Your mom's talking to me." That social outreach came back. And basically, I saw 100% return of this woman with Alzheimer's. The Parkinson's, women with Parkinson's, the same program. I'm not changing what I'm doing, and I'm very focused on these numeric sequences. The woman with Parkinson's, I could not understand her speech. It was really difficult to understand her, and I loved the woman. I couldn't understand it. 3 months after being in this program, from one day to the next, which is really extraordinary, from one day to the next, she spoke perfectly. You would never have known she had any trouble with speech at all. Her mobility improved. In fact, when I first met her, she was leaning over the keyboard, shaking and drooling on the keyboard. Within 3 months' time, she had perfect coordination. Her shaking had stopped. And then one day I watched her. She stood up from her bed, and she walked across the room and sat down in the wheelchair and had no mobility issues at all. The third person I tested this program with had a long-term stroke disability. He had a really struggle to lift himself up. Within 3 months, the disability disappeared. So that was the beginning of saying, well, I can't do this myself forever. I need to expand my understanding. So I put the program into a manual, and it was tested by people with other areas of real problems, such as a 3-year-old boy who was actually diagnosed with childhood apraxia of speech. This is the inability of the brain to connect with the muscles in your mouth. So it's incurable for the most part. And within 3 months of doing this program, he had a 70% improvement in his speech. It was hard to understand a little bit, but most everybody understood him. And within 3 years, he spoke perfectly. So these are why since I saw that the manual, the instructions were effective if implemented exactly by somebody else, then I came to you. I looked up Alzheimer's, and I thought, this has got to be introduced. I couldn't get anyone to test the program further for me, so I went to people. I went to healthcare, people in the healthcare industry through your show. And what we've seen from here on, Jerry, we'll start speaking about what her results were from the exact same program that we're testing in the Alzheimer's project.
Yeah, I find it just fascinating, and yet everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but Light has really shown what music does to the brain, the engagement, and, just bringing life back and purpose and the glint in the eye to the words, to be able to sing, to movement. But no one's really taken it to the level and that you have, with this. I think it's really, really interesting. Jerry, I want to go back to you and talk a little bit more. You had mentioned that you just heard about the project, I want to say, said back in April. So that's just a few months ago. What did you do once you heard about the project? Did you reach out to Patty, and how did you move forward?
I did. I reached out to Patty directly immediately following the podcast of that interview. Emailed Patty, and I think I received Patty's response. It was probably less than a day later. Maybe it was the following morning, which was really exciting. That led to a phone conversation where the two of us were, able to share our stories. By the end of that conversation, I felt that there's nothing to lose here, and immediately moved forward with bringing my dad in as a participant in the research, and the results were phenomenal, and they were immediate.
So did your dad have a piano in his house, or how did you work that?
No, so what I ended up doing is, and I'll go back a little bit, my father is a musician himself, self-taught, as am I, self-taught, inspired by my dad. So, we are, our life has always revolved around music. So it was pretty natural for him to kind of step into, this participant role and exercise, some of his skills. However, the piano was not his forte. I went out and I bought, a few keyboards. I thought, well, if we see positive results, I'm going to continue to move forward with others, if I can. So I bought the portable keyboards, and I kept one right at my dad's house, and that's what we use, during his we call them lessons. I think he coined it. Time for my lessons. So yeah, the keyboards, the portable keyboards were key, in this situation.
Wonderful, and you can pick those up for, even under $100. I've seen them, sell for, even if you want to get a used one. But they have pretty good sound, or you can spend a lot of money, on those. So I think that's just a nice option, because people think sometimes right away, well, I don't have a piano. Well, you don't have to have a piano, and it doesn't have to take up a lot of room. And the program doesn't have to take a lot of time either. So given your dad was a musician, was he able to pick up on the keys and the order pretty quickly? Or like Patty was saying with one woman, she had to, physically kind of push her fingers down on the keys?
My father picked up on it during, our very first experience. He really, and I think part of that, is a result of, his connection to music. But he's got great dexterity and use and function of his hands. So he was able to do that independently and really just took off with it immediately.
Wonderful. Well, that's fantastic. What kinds of changes have you seen and noticed in him since the start of the program?
So, we began mid-April, very, very soon after, my initial discussions with Patty. I would say within that very first week, what I observed was the return of enthusiasm in many different areas. Enthusiasm just in life, but I think most importantly, an enthusiasm toward his work, and which has been a very, very important thing to him for over 30 years. Pandemic, he lost interest and enthusiasm for his project, so he picked up his mechanical pencils and his drawing boards and got back to it immediately. The other thing I observed was his ability to articulate his ideas, his thoughts, his feelings in a way that I hadn't heard in quite some time. And, his self-esteem began to, reveal itself once again. And I think the other really important thing that I want to emphasize is that he began to reconnect on a very deep level with his family once again. Connection has always been important to him. And, if you have time, I'll tell a really quick story.
Oh, yeah, we're good.
He shared with me, and this, I believe, happened on week 2. He said, Jerry, I had an epiphany the other day. He said, in my foggy state, he calls it, the fog, in my foggy state, I was unable to truly connect with others. He said, I wasn't seeing your spirit. I wasn't seeing the spirit of, the other girls, my sisters and my grandchildren. And he said, I realized that seeing and connecting with the spirit of another comes through deep eye contact, to look into another person's eyes and really see them. And in this fog state, as he calls it, this great retreat he was experiencing, he was no longer maintaining eye contact. Mm-hmm. And in that second week, he began to look others in the eye again, and immediately able to sense, that spirit in others, to give more of himself and to see more of others in a real meaningful way. And that was really a remarkable experience that he shared with me. I began getting my dad back.
Oh, how sweet. And it makes so much sense. There's this fine line between dementia and depression, and a lot of people get misdiagnosed, and yet who wouldn't be depressed with a dementia diagnosis? That's pretty normal. We had this discussion the other day on dementia chats, where I talk with people with dementia, and they said, when you don't have purpose, you're going to feel depressed. You're going to disconnect. You're not going to feel valued. And, when you were talking about, him regaining this enthusiasm for life, because he accomplished something, he was still able to participate, still able to bring joy and feel joy, and that all came out. His ability to articulate, when you're down, you don't want to talk, you don't want to bother. It's what's the point of it all? And I think building that self-esteem is so critically important, and it's beautiful how he explained about just that connecting, with the eyes and really sensing that, because I think that loss is so severe, and I think we've been approaching so many things on a level that really isn't bringing that sense of spirit and connection and purpose and promise and hope back. It's on a molecule level, is what everyone has been focusing on as far as cure goes, instead of looking at the power of the human spirit. And to me, that is really a lot of Patty, of what you're doing here is you are reconnecting that human spirit back to a joyful place where they feel comfortable, they feel connected, they feel alive again. And Patty, please jump in if you disagree with any of that or have anything onto that.
No, from my work and what I'm seeing is the Numeric Language of Music program is computer code, basically. I'm seeing that the brain itself is a highly advanced biological computer, which is not something that's unthought of, because currently they're trying to create a biological computer using DNA and other aspects. But any computer needs instruction to complete a specific task. And instruction in computer understanding is referred to as computer language or code. And I'm on the line. I'm very happy for people. Humanity and the human spirit and the love that I have for people is all there. But my focus is understanding the numeric language as a programming language that the brain, the circuitry of the human brain is responding to by repairing itself. So we're seeing people with Parkinson's, with advanced Alzheimer returning. I mean, to the extent that and one thing that's interesting that seems to be common is most of them never even knew they were gone. They have no idea. So that when they're back, they just think they were always that way. And I had heard I watched your story when I first found out about you, and I thought, my gosh. It doesn't matter what stage or what age. First of all, the program is not age restrictive. It's irrelevant. The brain seems to be repairing itself at any age and in multiple areas. And, bringing this program forward for somebody like Jerry, she's getting her dad back. And I think anybody, I said within a reasonable amount of time using this program, it has a very strong possibility of the disease retreating or just being repaired completely. That is, unheard of. Mm-hmm. So if I'm right, if the numeric language of music is the innate inherent language of the human brain, if the human brain is actually a biological computer, and we are now able to communicate, give it direct to that brain for cognitive or remedial acceleration, repair itself, or a lot of other things that we are witnessing. It's a phenomenal discovery. It's a huge leap in understanding the capacity of the brain to fix itself, actually.
Yeah. Now, one of the things you had mentioned earlier, and I meant to ask you about this, was you had talked about there's core numbers 1 through 7, and you kind of have this equation that people go through. And yet I think when most people think of music, they think of keys and chords. And so have you gotten any pushback, with not naming them keys and chords, to play?
I've gotten some really adverse reactions from people who are highly educated in conventional music education, because they teach 12, I teach 7. But I have I'm very well versed in both systems, and the mathematics of the numeric language of music are precise to the mathematical structural form of the entire language. And because I'm talking with an audience that, believe me, I love you very much, and I want you to use the program because you have a tremendous capacity of your loved ones even coming home and being able to function on the normal level. But the program itself, if you look at a musical score, right, a blank score, because I compose music, so I place notes on that particular piece of paper, and that piece of paper with actually nothing on it represents 7 musical tones, and that also there are 7 white keys. There's multiple groups of 7 white keys on the piano keyboard, and they represent basically the same thing. So whatever I am putting on this score to tell other instruments or other musicians to play, I'm always doing nothing more than manipulating those primary 7 musical tones, multiple groups with the same 7 musical tones. So this program does not identify a musical tone individually. The way the numerics work is it's a single point on the piano keyboard. It's a point of location. The structural form of primary language is every other white key for a group of 3 musical tones. So you can call it whatever you want. We don't. I completely eliminated the use of alphabetic symbols. The numbers do not represent the individual parts of the piano or the notes themselves. It's a single point from which the structural form, play every other white key, and the pattern of motion, move it from left to right, so you have every other white key played from left to right, and then you take that and you move it to different locations on the piano keyboard, and the numeric sequence is simply referring to a single point on the piano keyboard to repeat that from. Now, what happened in doing that is I altered the algorithms of the language from what conventional music education teaches, and by changing the mathematical structural form that I was teaching, which is, of course, the pattern was based on the the patent is based on a new method of conveying musical information. New means new. It doesn't mean an alternate application of the other system. It's not the other system. It's a new system of conveying musical information. And by exactly identifying a numeric language, I triggered the human brain to respond in so many ways. And now, of course, the advancement of the numeric language of music is the further development of code. It's just with the very similar situations to when the computer itself, the computers we use, they first had codes. Steve Jobs was, they were developing all kinds of codes to see what they could get the machine to do. Well, we're at that stage now. But what is so, excuse my enthusiasm about this, but what we can retrieve from the human brain by understanding the programming language of the human brain is limitless. We don't know where this is going to go. We're starting to test it with healthcare workers are testing it. They asked me for permission to expand their testing, so they're testing it with aphasia, severe anxiety, depression, chronic anorexia, just to name a few areas that they're testing it. But for myself, I'm really focused on developing the code, because if we found a way for a human being to retrieve information, let's say these children that were failing in math and reading, and all of a sudden they just know how to do it, which is some of the intergirls, how are you doing this? She said, I don't know, I can just do it. So if we've developed a way to initiate the human brain to be able to retrieve information, what information might already be stored in the brain that we don't even know yet. We are already seeing that the brain can repair itself. It can reverse cognitive decline. It can reverse mobility problems. It can reverse speech problems. These are the things that we've already witnessed and we have documented. So, where do we go from here? My job is to develop the code. My job is to develop the numeric language of music, because if you're looking at the massive amounts of Western music literature, there's code all over the place, but you have to understand the language to the depth that I understand it, because I'm not just the author, but I've used this language for years in film scores, always understanding it in mathematics. Where can we go from here? And how many people are willing to follow my line of thinking? It would be very helpful if a lot of people who have been watching my work for years would communicate.
Yep. Well, it's interesting in terms of the core numbers versus the keys and things that people normally use, and I kind of laugh when you're getting pushback by that, because dementia for, scales of evaluation, there's 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 7, and everybody thinks that theirs is the right one. And yet all of them can work in different ways. And I think we have to be open to the opportunities and looking at kind of changing our ideas of the theories of what can work, what is possible. And we're seeing that door open a little bit more. We're seeing it kind of slam shut in some other areas. Just even this year with the Biogen fiasco when they rolled out their new product, and then here in Minnesota with the U of M, and they're all a mainstay study. There's questions about some of the photos that were taken and used of the brain, were they replicated, are they authentic or not? And so that's kind of, those two things, they're just kind of crushing, one of the main theories around there. And I think people are saying, hey, there's so many different symptoms and types of dementia. We have to have a broader scope of what is possible. And what you're finding, and I remember talking with you prior, Patty, you were talking about, kids that were autistic and the changes that people were seeing in that population as well. So I think it's really exciting. Everybody has a brain, and, if this code can work. Oh, go ahead.
We really have to go back to grasping, understanding the physical brain as a biological computer. I mean, we have to get that far, and understanding that this is a programming language, so it's code. And you know, previously, you know, in our first real interview on the Zoom, you had mentioned about, well, does everybody, you know, have to do it exactly this way? But it's code, and so yes, these mathematical sequences have to be implemented. They have to be introduced through the physical apparatus of the fingers to the brain, exactly how they are instructed. Because, okay, I mean, here's a silly example, but if Elon Musk is sending his rocket up to Mars, right? And the code, the language instructing that computer to get it there is wrong. It could end up in Chicago. You know, I mean, I'm just being facetious here, but that's actually the critical nature of this program. Has to be implemented exactly. And so, you know, the great pushback, of course, this has been forever, is from conventional music education curriculum, which, you know, I don't care what they teach. I think it's outrageous that they think that nobody else can teach something other than what they teach, because, you know, that's just foolishness. I mean, we're talking 200 years of teaching the same thing, and they've never come up with the underlying mathematics had to be changed to accomplish the phenomenal results we're seeing in Alzheimer's, dementia, all these other diseases. You know, we don't know. We are just at the beginning of comprehending the capacity the human brain has to repair itself. We don't know how far this can go. We're just now at the early stages of understanding that it's a programming code. The language, the innate inherent language of the human brain is music, but it's math, and the mathematics half on 7, not 12, and that is critical to accomplishing, you know, what we're doing. You know? So, you know, jump on board, people. Whether you're doing it for your own self, you know, Jerry, she loved her father. She wanted her father back, and she followed the program. One of the things that Jerry said was that even she wanted to, you know, kind of mess around with it, improvisation, or, you know, because she was a musician, and yet she decided, you know what, this woman knows a lot about this, so maybe I'll just do it. And at least that's what she told me, is maybe I'll just do it exactly as she said. And, of course, that was mandatory. It's mandatory because it's code.
Well, I want to go back to Jerry, because I want to ask, you know, how easy was this for you to do, Jerry? And do you think anybody can do this, even that people that don't have a background in music? Because I think that's one of the things people go, you know, I don't know anything about this.
I will tell you, without doubt, anybody can do this. It's not about understanding musical concepts. It's about following instruction, simple instruction. And that's I think really key as well, is that it is so simplistic. You know, Patty just has she's got a great way of really reinforcing the simplicity right out of the gate, and then walking you through it, laying it out for you very simply. I think it took me, you know, all of 15 minutes to get it down, and then, you know, share it with my father, who then immediately picked up on it, and you know, and didn't even need my support and assistance, you know, for a lot of you know, his playtime. So I can't emphasize that enough, the ease of this program.
Well, and Patty, if I'm not mistaken, you have this in kind of a workbook form, but you also have a video that shows it as well. Am I correct on that?
Well, actually, it's just a file.
Okay.
It's a brief file. It's presented. Now, when I first started and I came to you, it was because of your mom. That story was so moving, watching you with your mom. And I thought, I know that Lori La Bey would have given anything to have her whole again before she passed away. and all of these other people. So I was compelled, knowing that the program completely reversed the cognitive decline. Everything was basically Ruth could have left, shortly could have left the facility, but she passed away from another disease. So to come, like, Lori, look, all these other people that are in the situation you are with your mom, look, this could possibly, really help them get their loved one back. This was like within 30 days, and it's never not worked within 3 months. But Alzheimer's seems, dementia for whatever reason responds, cognitive decline responds rapidly. It seems like some other issues, especially, like in what you're talking about, autistic children, some of that took 3 months. But again, like what I was speaking about with the Parkinson's, the change was from one day to the next. Mm-hmm. Where the debilitating effects that they were suffering with, or they were dealing with, for 3 months was still there. But then one day from the next, it was gone. And so what I learned was that the process of instructing the brain from the programming language to repair itself is initiated immediately. As soon as you introduce this mathematical code, it's instructing the human brain to repair itself. Now, who knows, so the children with the reading and the math accelerated sometimes within 2 weeks. A woman with dyscalculia, which is the inability to do math. 2 weeks later, she had 100% on her algebra test. And so we're dealing with a computer programming language. It initiates the brain to begin repairing itself immediately. How long it takes to be effective, we're just in the early days of, learning about that, because obviously as one person, I was limited in my ability, to do more than, some work with some people. Then I produced the manual, and that really expanded, but not that much, because really I think people just didn't believe it. And I can understand that. I mean, come on, I can understand that, so we went to the Alzheimer's Research Project, and that introduced it to healthcare workers like Jerry. And so we're expanding into other areas now because, and so we're going to have a lot of research results. So that's kind of given me more time now. I'm in a supervisory and a supportive role with people like Jerry, or we have a great woman up in Denver now, and she has expanded her research. She's like booked 8 months out, and she said that she has clients in multiple areas, and she's documenting and test officially in her capacity, her certification capacity, and I think she sent me a little note just recently. She just started it with her daughter. And I did send that to you, didn't I, Lauren? I think
no,
so.
I don't remember seeing that one. But you've got so much. You've got so much going on. It's neat.
But it's so now my me for myself. I'm wanting to accelerate the programming language itself. Mm-hmm. Because everybody can use what we have already, and it's going to be very effective. Autism, it's amazing what we've seen in autism. With Asperger's, a good child that wouldn't touch anybody. 3 weeks after in the program, she ran across the room and threw herself in my arms. So ADD, ADHD, it's just all brain. Whatever's wrong with the brain in any aspect at all is this seems to instruct the brain as a computer, as a programming language, to repair itself. So that's where that's my assessment of it.
Okay. So with all this success, where are you heading from here? Is there anything else you can share with us? And how do people participate? Is there a cost? Those types of things.
Right. Because we're in research, we have not. And for this file, we've given this file. There's the Alzheimer's Research Project was a file that I first produced for you, Lori, basically because of your mom. that this was a file that could be used by anyone with a loved one in the condition your mother was. But the exact same information can be used by someone just to do it themselves, if they've been diagnosed, or to show your loved one how to do this, or to help them to do it. And so that file is easily accessed. We restricted the research to this file and one other file which can be reached through me, through personal contact with me. There's one other file that we're researching, but because of intellectual property, the patent, and other things, we're only researching these two particular files of code that we've been so successful with. So for myself, I now, there are a lot of people that are testing the project, so I don't no longer do one-on-one, but I'll do consultation, but I don't do one-on-one. There's no charge for this program, but if you would like to, maybe in the Minneapolis area, if you would like to contact Jerry, of course Jerry would charge for her time to if you wanted to just know that you're doing it right. I think Jerry would be more than happy to consult with you. And that's where we're moving to, that consultation with other people, professionals that have shown me that they know exactly what they're doing with this program. Then it's going to go from there. It's just going to spread. It's just so amazing. These kids that are so distressed from the pandemic and everything that's going on in their social lives, or even problems that they're having on social media. The girls, the woman in Denver, put her daughter in, who was having real outbursts of anger and real behavioral problems, and she sent me a text, a phone text. And she said she just couldn't believe it. She said her daughter, everything's changed. Her behavior's changed. She's enthusiastic about life, and she's alive again. And all of that frustration and anxiety and anger just went away. Just from playing these sequences in just like a week. So sometimes the results are extraordinarily rapid, and sometimes they take around 3 months' time. But I've never, there's always been tremendous success within 3 months' time, and I'm just so thankful and privileged to discover this, and I'm so thankful to you, Lori, for letting me talk about it on your show.
Well, I just think it's really exciting, and especially with a disease like this, you have nothing to lose. It's free. You try it. And there's absolutely nothing to lose, and people are so anxious, and they're waiting for this magic bullet. And we've all known we have more control over our bodies than what we think we do, and I just think it's fascinating. Point. And I think, the results you're seeing in the wide spread of categories you're seeing in it, too, says something even stronger, that you really do have some kind of code with the brain that this is triggering amongst so many different people. So, I was thrilled when you reached out. I'm still thrilled today. I'm very excited for what you're doing. And I would love to see more people reach out to you as individual families, but also as healthcare organizations. How cool would this be to put in a doctor's hand and to tell people about, or get into support groups?
What's the point in arguing?
Yep, exactly.
Just repeat the program without deviation for 3 months. I think you don't even need that long. But, I don't want to argue with anybody. You can teach and do whatever you want, but these results are being accomplished by doing it the way I'm telling you to.
Yeah. Well, I do want to make sure that we give out your website, which is AlzheimersResearchProject.com. That's AlzheimersResearchProject.com. You can also email Patty through that website as well. If you scroll down towards the bottom, there's a email form to fill out. And if you want to learn more about the history of the Numeric Language of Music program, you can go to Patty's other website, which is pattycarlsononline.com. That's pattycarlsononline.com. Patty, is there anything that we haven't covered? And I want to ask Terry the same if there's anything else she wants to add.
The only thing I would like to ask Jerry is to mention about the mobility. Your dad was having mobility problems, and you told me that there was a change there.
Yes, absolutely. You're reading my mind over there, Patty, because I'm making notes here saying, let's not miss this really valuable piece of information. So my father, in addition to the cognitive decline, 30 plus years ago, my father began experiencing some significant mobility issues. He's a retired veteran currently and part of the VA system, seeks all of his medical needs through the Veterans Hospital. So for 30 years, his specialists there have worked with him to try to understand the core reasons behind the continued mobility issues. And it has compromised his ability to walk independently. His muscles severely atrophied. And I had talked to Patty, I think it was a couple months into the program, and we talked specifically about mobility changes, and I had not observed any changes at that point with his mobility, and consequently he had also taken a 2-week hiatus from the program while I was on vacation. And Patty said, "Jerry, stick with it." She said, "I really feel strongly that at that 90-day point, you're going to begin to see improvements there." And true to her word, I began to observe, and he experienced increased balance. The muscle atrophy began to be released. His balance has improved significantly. And just an overall feeling of well-being. So that was quite remarkable, and definitely, I think, worth noting that, if you're not seeing results yet, just hang tight. They'll be there.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, thank you, ladies, for spending this hour with us. It's been fascinating. I hope our listeners like, click, and share this information because it is extremely important opportunity for people to be able to take hold of. So enjoy your week. Again, you can go to Alzheimer'sResearchProject.com for more information. You can also email Patty directly from there. And if you want more of a history on the Numeric Language of Music, go to pattycarlsononline.com. Thanks, everyone. We are going to hear from the... Thank you. We're going to hear from the Alz authors, and we'll catch you on Thursday. Bye now.
Hello, podcast listener. If you're caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia, you'll want to check out Alz Authors, the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience. We have the most comprehensive collection of hundreds of carefully vetted books and blogs covering all types of dementia and caring situations. Our authors' personal stories and painfully learned lessons can help you on your own journey. We also offer a fabulous podcast called Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, which you can find on any of your podcast platforms. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony. Find us at alzauthors.com.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.